nice enough to wear his test pattern jacket just like a real television station. So the Morning Exiles, thanks to you and your popular vote, which becomes then the K&B, Kevin and Bill podcast, will be coming to you live in 6 minutes. Tell your friends, wake the kids, get mom out of the shower quickly, no touching. And everybody yes, everybody gather around your mobile device.
I'm checking for audio.
And watch it on Facebook Live.
I'm checking for audio.
Well, we have something happening.
We have picture but no sound.
Well, we had sound a minute ago.
It's interesting because I'm not hearing a thing on my audio.
You all have a ETA on the website?
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, soon.
Sorry.
We're in the wrong place? You put that in the wrong hole again, Kevin?
I know too.
All right, here we go. We're checking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
I'll feel a
8.
lot better when I can hear this in my earpiece.
All right, well, I'll just keep talking because there is a... Whoop, 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 whoop.
Disconnecting this just in case it's confused.
Because there is a delay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It worked in rehearsal. You got it?
Well, I'm getting audio levels, but I'm not hearing anything. Can you all hear? Somebody say something if you're hearing nothing.
Somebody say something if you're hearing nothing. Now, how are they going to know that if they're hearing nothing?
Yeah.
Let's see here. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we go. All right, see us. Let me see if I can hear us. Oh, yeah, there we go. See? They're hearing us. There it is.
Must be an issue.
It could be an issue with your earbuds. And take your sound out of the headphone jack for the Mevo, the iRig, or out of this. If you're that worried about it, take it out of the iRig.
No, I mean,
Right?
you've got sound on your machine. So
Got sound on my machine.
we're good to go.
We are 3 minutes till air. Franz, stand by.
Thank you all. We're going to shut down for the while, shut the microphones down, and we'll begin the program in 3 minutes. Hear from La Divina. Our guests today, by the way, are State Representative Franklin Foyle, who is running for State Senate. We also have State Representative Paula Davis, who is running for another term in the state legislature. And we'll also have Franz Borghardt with legal opinion on some recent legal matters here in the city of Baton Rouge and the state. So stick around. The show gets underway in 5 minutes. Thanks for being with us.
They're hot.
Mics are hot.
We are 25 seconds to air.
Mics are hot.
These are hot mics.
Let's see. Yeah, Franklin's well in frame.
Yeah, right.
Perfect.
So's Franz.
Cheating his way into the shot, as always. 5, 4, 3.
Hello.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the recently renamed Morning Exiles. Too many people thought AM meant AM radio. We did that. We thought that too for a number of years. But hey, we are the Morning Exiles, the K&B Podcast. Kevin Gallagher, Bill Perfita with you from La Divina Italian Cafe. And so glad to have you with us for our podcast on Friday morning.
By the way, if you're out and about, we invite you to stop on by, get a cup of coffee, get some delicious breakfast, and join us today or any other Tuesday or Friday or any day here at La Divina.
And
come on by and let Lance show you some hospitality and some great food.
And we have a YouTube channel now, right?
We did. We launched a YouTube channel on Tuesday afternoon. It's called the K&B, and the end is an ampersand, the K&B Podcast. So if you search for K&B Podcast, you'll find it. Also, I'm going to make good use of keywords, so you'll be able to, if you know that, say, Franklin Foyle was a guest on the show, you'll be able to search Franklin Foyle and be able to hear that interview. So
Wonderful. So
and Franklin Foyle is a guest on the show. State Representative Franklin Foyle is with us.
now running for the Senate. Good morning, Franklin. How are you?
Bill, good seeing you, and Kevin, great to be with you. This is my first podcast. This is a new adventure for me.
Well,
Never done a podcast before.
I have
never
not.
been on a podcast. Well, we have a little more liberty with time than regular radio broadcasting.
And we can say words we can't say on the radio.
but we don't. Unless it's
Because, decorum.
unless it's spontaneous, and in which case we go, oops, sorry.
That's probably wise.
That's probably wise indeed. So you're running for the state senate. What district is that?
It's Senate District 16. I've been in the State House now for 12 years, and there's an opening in the Senate, and I'm really excited about it. It's a lot bigger area than the House District. The House District is about 40,000. The Senate District's over 100,000. So I've been hitting the trail hard, meeting a lot of people, and looking forward to bringing my experience and skills over to the Senate.
Now, this is a seat currently held by Dan Clater. He's term limited, and we know Dan very, very well. I know you know Dan very, very well. He has seemingly done a very credible job in the Senate. And you have two opponents. You have your colleague from the House, Steve Carter, who made a decision that he was going to run. And then you also have a political newcomer, Beverly Brooks Thompson. So, first of all, do you feel that there's probably going to be a runoff because there's three of you?
I think there's a good chance there will be, because there are actually two other candidates as well who are not as well known. But when you have 5 candidates running for an open seat, there's a good chance that the votes will be split up. It'll be hard for anyone to get 50%. We're going to work as hard as we can, but I'm fully prepared and expecting there probably will be a runoff at the end.
Now, why, and we ask this of every candidate, you've been asked this before, why should you be the choice?
Well, I have a record. That's what I'm running on. I've been in office for 12 years. Not only do I have experience, but I've been very effective in office. I've passed over 73 bills since I was elected to the House. And that's what I offer to the folks in Senate District 16. If you want someone that can hit the ground running, be effective, get things done, I'm the person. I also have a track record of working well with others. And part of that, I think, is about my Navy training as well, where you have to do teamwork and you have to work well with everyone to get things done. And I've passed a lot of legislation with both Governor Jindal and Governor Edwards, who I can work with either of those folks, or have worked with both of those folks very well.
If you don't mind, Franklin, I'd like to ask you a more basic why. After putting in your time, you've done 12 years of public service. Why do you want to go back? Why do you want to go over to the Senate?
Well, I really enjoy what I'm doing. I still have a lot of energy, and I can make a difference. One of my first bills I passed my first session was to expand health insurance coverage for children with autism. I ran into a lady the other day at the Secretary of State's office, and she said, I just want to let you know, one of my family members was able to get services because of your bill, and it's made a huge impact. That made my day, and that's the kind of reward that I get from doing the job, where I can actually make real differences in people's lives. Once again, I still enjoy it, and I think to be an effective senator, you need not only experience, but the relationships as well that I've built in the House. Many of my colleagues will be going over to the Senate.
Mm-hmm. It'll be a very different Senate, not just because of turnover from term limits, but because one of the grand old gentlemen of the state legislature, John Ilario, will no longer be presiding over the Senate. So that could change a lot of. I don't want to get into doing a postmortem on Mr. Ilario, but people talked about Jude A as a committee where good bills go to die, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And do you look forward to a more open environment in the Senate?
I think it's going to be an exciting opportunity, sort of like when I was first elected to the House in 2007. You had a bunch of new people for the first time. We had over 60 new representatives. You're going to have over half the Senate will be, or close to half will be new senators. And so there's an opportunity for us to go in and start fresh. And one of the things that was really interesting and very good, I think, for our state was this past 4 years, we in the House elected our own speaker independently of the governor, which is the first time
there was a big dust-up over that for about a week and a half, and then it became a fait accompli.
It was, and I see the same thing potentially happening in the Senate. It's hard to say yet because you don't know who the governor is going to be, but I think there's certainly an opportunity for the Senate to be a little bit more independent and to elect our own leader. Now,
John Ilario is termed out, right?
He is, and there were rumors he might run for the House again, because some of them are, but he has decided that he's going to retire, so he's moving on.
He's going to retire when they pry his cold, dead fingers from the podium and drag him out with a forklift.
I think he is ready to retire, because he's been there, I think, like 40 years.
1971 was his first year in the state legislature. 1971. Let that sink in. And so, yeah, he's earned the right to stand down if he wishes, I think.
Now, there are some issues. Your district is fairly secure, fairly stable, but there are some larger issues facing the state that those in the Senate and the House are going to have to deal with. And what's interesting is I don't yet hear any of the people running for governor talking about this. I mean, I personally think it's a crying shame that 27% of our population is on some sort of public assistance. And nobody seems to want to talk about this. I think it's a shame that the people who are paying the taxes to support those people can't drive on decent roads to go to work.
Right.
I mean, where do you take these kind of issues in the Senate, particularly when nobody running for governor is talking about them?
Well, as you know, I've been on the Appropriations Committee in the House for the last 8 years. And we keep looking at areas to cut the budget, and that's a big problem with all the people on public assistance, especially when we did the Medicaid expansion. On the program. So it's something we're going to have to continue to work on, because our budget is getting unsustainable if we continue to grow like we are.
Well, I think one of the things about you and others like you in other areas that are probably changing chambers is I think your experience goes with you. Even though you're representing a bigger group of voters in a larger geographic area, your experience goes with you. But since there's going to be such a huge turnover, it's going to take a while to figure out who's looking at what and who can work and who can't in the new Senate, and I'm sure the same with the new House.
Yeah, there are always growing pains in that respect. Once again, I look back in 2007 when I first got elected to the House, you had over half were new people. And really that gives the advantage to the governor, because the governor has a big team, and when we first got elected in 2007, Governor Jindal came in and was ran very heavy hand really in his leadership. And so we're going to have to work with the governor, but whoever the governor is, we'll be looking to the governor for leadership.
I'm going to get back to your race in a minute. We've got some time. Have you thought about some of the other races where some of your colleagues are going to try to move from the House to the Senate, and you want to handicap some of those?
Well, I don't know if I should get into detail, but I certainly have served with some other House members who are running for the Senate, and I have good relationships with them all. And if you look over at the Senate historically, half the senators started off in the House, which makes sense. It's good training, and so I expect most of my colleagues who are running for the Senate will be successful. Although you have some situations like mine where you have more than one House member running. In fact, there were three Senate seats where my House members ran unopposed, which is sort of unheard of. Patrick Connick down in Jefferson Parish, he's actually never had to run for election. He ran for the House three
Really?
times and never has had an opponent.
That's-
people. The hardest thing to change at the Capitol is sacred cows and status quo, and that's what people are afraid of. But we need to push it, and we need to push the governor, whoever that might be, to push it as well.
I had just moved to Louisiana the last time we had a constitutional convention. And if I'm remembering correctly, this was under Governor Edwin W. Edwards, that the people who were appointed to the Constitutional Convention were the same people that would have created the problem in the first place. He basically appointed himself, some of his staff, and about 95% of the legislature.
Well, the way it worked the first time, that you did have some appointments, but it was people were actually elected from districts, and I think they were from the same districts where the House is right now. So you did have a lot of House members who got elected, but once again, some of the discussions about a constitutional convention, or one of the big issues, is who should serve, just like you said. And I don't think you should necessarily take legislators off the table because they do have experience, but I think you have to let the public elect the delegates.
Well, see, here's the thing, and maybe this is kind of radical, but I think all legislators, good or bad, pure of heart or not, also have a constituency. I would like to see 200 experts in law, transportation, health care, public funding, policy from anywhere but Louisiana be paid a per diem to come in and get this done. They
Right.
have no constituency they have to answer to.
Well, I think that makes sense for the preliminary planning, and that's why I've pushed to do a study or get a commission to really look at this first, instead of just jumping into a convention where no one knows what direction they're going in. And that's where you bring the experts in, lay out a framework, and get buy-in from the people.
Well, so in addition to the Constitutional Convention,
If I have one more question about
Sure.
that. Without one, can there be any really substantial change in the way state governments run?
No, because there are so many things in the Constitution that need to be changed. And I mean, you could offer a bunch of different amendments, but that's going to be too complicated for people to follow. You need a comprehensive plan that you put together, and you offer that. And look, it's democracy. It's up or down vote of the people.
by the way, someone who has been mentioned as a prospective Speaker of the House for the next session, Paula Davis, just walked in. She will be joining us in about a half an hour here.
And I'm happy to handicap her race. I look forward to her winning her race comfortably, and she's been a great colleague, and she will be a leader in this next House. I have no doubt about it.
So when you're out campaigning, what do you tell people that goes beyond your experience in the district and in the government? What are you maybe telling them that they may not have thought about before?
Well, once again, I bring to them details. For example, I have passed 73 bills into law, and I talk about what I've actually passed, because people don't realize that in a session that's very quick, it's difficult to pass just one or two bills. And I get requests from all kinds of people about problems they have with state government to bring legislation to fix things. And so, I talk about the details of what I've done. And I also think it's very important to tell people you got to work well with others. I mean, it's great to go out there and lob bombs and throw bombs or whatever, but if you really want to be effective, you got to be willing to sit down and work with both sides. You don't see that in Washington at all. And we're getting worse here, but, I worry about that.
I think one of the things that I look at, and I'm starting to hear more buzz about this, is I do think that the legislature as a whole needs to start looking at the impact on business development in this state of their actions. When you have people bringing things like that dumbass stripper bill, and things like that, if I'm sitting in my ivory tower in Dallas, where I don't have that much stupidity swirling around me because our legislature only meets once every 2 years, I'm like, do I really want to go to the land where Mensa is knocking on no one's door? I think we need to put a blanket on this crap if we want to continue to have good business development in this state.
Yeah, it is frustrating because every year we see these bills, which I don't think are serious bills, and they're actually somewhat of an embarrassment, and you have to vote on this. Right now the way it works, everyone has the right to bring whatever they want, but you're right, it gives us a black eye when we have that kind of legislation, as well as over-regulating. We're constantly having people who want to bring in more regulation, or they want to bring in more boards to regulate industry, And we
And
need to
hand
go the
out
other
more
way.
patronage positions where people can say, yep, I am the chairman
Yep.
of the plastic garbage bag of Calcasieu Parish.
Absolutely. And, if you're going to invite business and make it business friendly, you want to take out those roadblocks.
But in theory, that's what the committee process is all about, to weed out the bad bills from the good. And if a bill is nonsense or just feel-good legislation, hopefully it won't get past committee.
And you're right.
But you get bills like the stripper bill where who's going to vote against it and look like a jerk?
No, you're right. Now, and I'll tell you about might have been my first or second year, there was a bill that said if you had been convicted of child molesting, you could not hand out Halloween candy. Now, who's going to vote against that? But I didn't know that was a really big problem. But once again, you have that kind
Well,
of...
as part of your registry, you're to have no contact with children. So it's in there.
You can't
it's
wear a mask.
Done.
It's the old, the solution in search of a problem. You see that.
Right.
But with that said, for the most part, we have people who do bring very thoughtful legislation. But you do have to deal with that.
Well, the thing is, there is no sieve. There is nothing that it's run through. I would like to see, because the stripper bill has always been one of my favorites for its blatant unconstitutionality. And somebody probably told that moron it was unconstitutional before he brought it. And then, since it gets passed, because nobody dares vote against it, then when it gets challenged in court, the state of Louisiana has to bear the expense of defending it all the way up to the Supreme Court, and we do that with outside counsel. It runs into hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars. I think there should be a plan to where if somebody is writing a bill that is patently unconstitutional, someone should tell them that, and if they persist, then they bear the cost of defending it rather than the state of Louisiana.
That probably would cut down on a lot of those bills
You
if you did
think?
that. And one of
Money
the,
to defend your bill will come out of funds for your district.
Yeah.
but one of the things you see, and maybe we will go to that eventually, is more regulation on what bills the speaker could control what bills actually go to the committee and what bills come to the floor. And I think we're still growing as being an independent body. This last 4 years was very interesting with an independent speaker because we've always had the governor so heavy-handed.
Well, we've got 5 minutes left with you before we bring on Franz Borghardt, and then we're going to move on to Paula Davis.
I have a campaign question.
Sure.
One of your opponents is Steve Carter, fellow you worked alongside in the legislature. He's a good guy. If things get contentious, are you prepared to, go there on the campaign trail against Steve?
I'm ready, and I'm just going to run a positive campaign and just talk about me moving forward. And he and I've served a long time together, and I look forward to just talking about my campaign and to be very positive. I think that's what people are looking for. I mean, some people get contentious. I think most people, though, would rather a positive message, and that's what I'm going to do, talk about me.
Well, let me hear your 3-minute stump speech here in the 3 minutes we have left.
Well, once again, it's been my pleasure to have served in the House for the last 12 years. I've learned serving in the House that there are a lot of sacred cows, and there are lots of, it's hard to change the status quo. But if you want to change the status quo, you need a serious and experienced leader who will work well with others to do it. That's what I bring to the table. I've been in, like I said, I've passed over 73 bills into law. I've worked well with Governor Jindal and Governor Edwards, and I've got the experience to get it done. I also have 28 years service in the United States Navy, which I have 2 more years of service left. I'm an appellate court judge up in Washington. That's given me great leadership opportunities as well, and increases or helps me to work well with others and teaches you all about teamwork.
Now, you are a captain, so you are one small step away from admiral. Are you going to stay till admiral?
I don't know if that'll work out, but I'm going to stay at least 2 more years, and we'll see what happens. I did get extended on the Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C. by our current judge advocate for 2 more years. So at the very least, I'll be able to retire out of that job, and I thoroughly enjoy it. I'll hate to move on, but there's time to make room for others.
I think that's terrific. State Representative Franklin Foyle wants to be Senator Franklin Foyle. We thank you for joining us, and before the general election, we will visit with you one more time.
Thanks, Bill. My pleasure.
Thank you so
guys.
much.
That's your first podcast. Did it go okay?
It went well. Attorney Franz Borghardt is going to join us now as Franz gets settled here. So I want to talk about the Walmart incident.
Or lack of incident.
Well, I mean, thank God it was a lack of incident.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad nobody was hurt.
But
seriously.
Here's the thing. First of all, I think it was absolutely terrific that the sheriff and the city police and ATF and state police and EMS and fire were able to get that many people there that quickly. Had that been an active shooter, with God forbid even more, it would have been contained. It wouldn't have gone anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But good God in heaven, the panic.
Panic.
And then bad information based
bad
on
information,
bad
inaccurate
witnesses.
reporting, bad eyewitnesses. It was really just a cluster. It was just a huge cluster F, and we still don't know exactly what happened. We were told one day after the incident that the man with the gun was a licensed concealed carry holder. He practiced great restraint in not firing his weapon, and he was not arrested. Then the next day, he's arrested.
On more serious charges than the guy that went out to the car to get his scissors to come back and try to attack him.
Is that the world we're living in now, where you defend yourself from a threat? There's a botched, I guess, media circus around
You've
it.
gone through the legal process to be able to defend
Right.
yourself.
So you're licensed, you're permitted, you're following the law, and for your labors, acting in self-defense, you're arrested.
But what happens if the review of the security tapes at the customer service center, because that's where all this started, and the people that were working there said the guy with the concealed carry permit was the aggressor?
Well, then it changes things.
See,
right?
we don't know that. We've had so much information coming out in drips and drabs and corrections and revisions and things like that.
The impression I get, and again, you're right, I wasn't the investigator, I wasn't the sheriff who made a comment about how there wasn't going to be an arrest, now there is an arrest. But the impression I got was that the gentleman was acting in self-defense. He didn't discharge his firearm. Remember, for a while rumor was that the firearm had been discharged. Witnesses were stating that it had been discharged.
One person
Shot
had a gunshot.
twice.
Yeah, one person had shot twice, suffering gunshot wounds. It's like,
Yeah.
and as recently as last night on the news, they were talking to witnesses who were saying, "I heard the pop, pop, pop."
Well,
it's like
when you
the
get
sheriff's office says no shots fired.
when you get bad information from eyewitnesses that, quite frankly, appeared to be very hysterical. You know,
So
Lance just
Look, I
took
can't.
that coffee grounds holder and went pop, pop, pop. Oh my God!
So it's not uncommon for witnesses to get details like number of shots fired wrong.
Yep.
It sounds counterintuitive, but that's not uncommon. I've worked in many a case, both as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney, to where the number of shots are wrong. But to manifest shots when there were no shots,
Well, a Walmart is a very big place. People could have been running. They could have been pushing carts to get out of their way and hitting shelves. So you could have some loud noises.
A box hitting the floor.
You know, I mean, so I get that, but the level of panic when you didn't actually see anybody pull a trigger, when you didn't actually see anybody fall, you didn't actually see any blood, you know, I mean, there
Look, you've got a friend.
there was absolutely no conscious effort to determine what's going on before that 911 call was just
how about why are we getting into fights at Walmart?
Yeah.
into Walmart lately.
I try to avoid, no offense to Walmart.
Well, there
but
you go then.
The emergence of Amazon has made everyday shopping so much easier.
Well, it's another area where people who are in close proximity to each other, like at the customer service counter, Mensa's not coming and knocking
I
on
would
their
imagine
door.
a lot of what you do is the result. You know, you wind up representing people. It's the result of people just burn on a really short fuse now.
So we've had a common theme for the last several months that people want to wrap their brains around. This is, by the way, that's Mr. Ambo, who's co-counsel on.
I know.
I invited him to come by and hang out with you guys.
Certainly.
We've had a lot of embracing. People need to rationalize and understand the unexplainable. We understand two guys getting over a fight over a woman, but getting into a fight because somebody pulled in front of you in the road.
Cutting line.
Yeah, I mean that kind of stuff's
How about
just.
the brother who shoots the brother because he took the last piece of chicken?
Well, I mean, what kind of fried chicken we talking about?
Well, this is what I call my Chamber of Commerce
We talking
crime.
Blue Store? We talking?
Yeah. All right. We have you here because you're handling a case that's going to become very high profile very, very soon.
Right.
The case of Anthony Tomplay. He is a juvenile.
Right.
You remember this was about, 2 months ago? His father, who people like the mother and other relatives said the father was very abusive to this kid. In fact, they thought the kid was missing. The father kept him incognito for a
Right.
lot of years.
Right.
The story went at the time that the father was attacking the young man, that he went into a room, closed the door. His father beat a hole in the door, and that is when he fired 3 shots,
I think it was 3. Yeah.
striking his father. His father was dead. A lot of people looked at that and said, the guy was an abuser, the guy was an aggressor, he was violent, this kid shouldn't be charged with anything. And I guess it was yesterday or day before we had any grand jury can indict a ham sandwich, and I think the ham sandwich got indicted here.
So you guys know me well enough, and this again is Mr. Ambo. He's lead counsel on the case. I'm helping out along with the public defender's office. You guys know me well enough to know that I'm pretty even-tempered. It takes a lot for me to get angry. I get
Right here, I'll put a mic in front.
I get angry when I see gross unprofessionalism, and I get really angry when I think that my client's getting railroaded. This is a kid, Bill, Kevin, this is a kid where on all accounts we can say with a straight face, the state's failed him. Let the state let him be in the hands of a very abusive father. We were in discussions with the DA's office as immediate as Wednesday afternoon. They told us they were going to the grand jury. We as a team were communicating with them and saying, hey, wait. We're not saying don't go to the grand jury. We're saying just wait. We want to present mitigation. We were invited to present mitigation. Now, this is Wednesday afternoon. So understand, Wednesday afternoon, before we do anything, we have to talk to our client. So essentially what we did was we came to an agreement through an exchange of messages on Thursday morning to delay grand jury for 60 days. They wanted something in writing. We had a working draft that we, in fact, had sent them. Okay, and by the way, in the legal world, it's not uncommon to circulate a draft of something as a proposal to say, hey, is this going to work?
All right, so compress this a little bit.
Okay.
You thought you had an agreement.
They reneged. They reneged and indicted him, and they didn't just indict him after they reneged. They indicted him for a charge above what he was arrested for. I can at least see, look, we believe it was self-defense. I can at least see an argument for manslaughter. I'm not intellectually dishonest to where I can't see that. Second-degree murder doesn't fit here at all. I mean, that just doesn't fit here. And so I don't know why they would upcharge him. Maybe it's some kind of sense of leverage they want to get over him.
No, I think if anything, it's a lack of offer of any evidence that was active at the time of the event. And so our client made a statement. He made a statement to detectives that he didn't feel threatened and that his dad was unarmed. But, this is a young man who's been abused all of his life and who's just had to defend himself against his father who was attacking him. And so his statements or his state of mind at that moment when he was answering has to be questioned, right? I mean, were those even reasonable statements under the circumstances?
How old is this young man?
16.
16.
16 at the time.
At the time.
And he, no, 17 at the time, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
he's about to turn 18.
My apologies, 17 at the time. And so I guess the question is, was in fact a current altercation occurring when this happened?
Have you two seen the other evidence at the scene? For example, was there a hole punched in the door where the young man was behind the door?
In fact, the door was off one of the hinges, and there isn't a full hole in it, but there's clearly, it's being beaten down.
And that wouldn't be considered to be aggressive behavior?
Well, of course it is. Of course. If the kid, it's sort of picking and choosing what you believe the child said, right? So the officer chooses to believe his statement when he says, I didn't feel threatened, but doesn't believe his statement when he says, well, I was on the other side of the door and he was beating it down to get to me. What does that mean? How is that not the same?
So at the end of the day, we're very confused because generally, this DA's office is extremely professional. Generally, and I have nothing but admiration for Hiller. I've worked with Hiller. When you're told things by this DA's office, you can generally take it to the bank.
And I echo those sentiments 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
This is weird.
Is there a possibility that there are some factors that you all are not privy to?
Could be. But
Certainly.
but not delaying for 60 days was just, and I'm using your language, grossly grossly unprofessional.
Let me tell you.
Real quick, we have this comment coming in, and this is just scuttlebutt, okay? But it's chatter going around is that they pushed for an overcharge of second, so it'll be easier for him to beat that at trial. No jury would convict him of that when the history's laid out. What do you think?
Look, there's a reasonable assertion that an overcharge like that makes it easier on the defense, right? If the prosecution overreaches, it's something that we use at trial to the jury to say they're being unreasonable. And this is an unreasonable charge. It's an unreasonable prosecution. And what they're reaching for here is out of reach based on the evidence and circumstances. And that tends to turn the jury away from what is their default position, which is believing everything the prosecution says, to thinking, well, maybe they are overreaching. And so, yeah, is that possible? No. I mean, yes, is it possible? Yes. Is it happening? No. The DA's office is not assisting us in,
Do you feel
our
like you've been
defense.
dealt with in poor faith?
So I'll tell you what occurred here. We had less than 24 hours notice that he was being brought to the grand jury on that morning. Like Franz said, we had to speak both to our team and our client. And I spoke to our client that morning at about 8:15 in the morning, and we had an agreement. I mean, we had an agreement as all agreements may go. Prior to signing something, we had a clear agreement between both sides that we were going to delay the prosecution for the purpose of a further investigation.
Here's the thing. Obviously, that agreement was not going to work for people in the prosecutor's office. They wanted to go to the grand jury. The big question is, where do you all go from here to make sure that justice is done fairly for your client?
I think we have to view this case now as it is going to trial. And you view every case as if it's going to go to trial, but a lot of cases in general, 95% of all criminal cases resolve themselves with plea bargaining. I don't, obviously, based on what happened, I have some trust issues right now with what's going on, but we are gearing up for trial at this point. We're going to file motions, we're going to get discovery, and I don't want to belabor the grand jury conversation, but I do want to go back to a point that's very germane. In a case like this, a good prosecutor would look at the defense team and say, does your client want to avail himself of an opportunity to come talk at the grand jury, to come testify? Now, we might have said no. I don't know that even came up.
So he was indicted in absentia?
Correct. That normally happens. You indict in absentia, but understand, in a case like this where there are some factual assertions of self-defense, abuse, these kind of issues, you would at least invite that other side to come to the table, certainly well in advance of 2 days.
Now, what about his age? They're charging him with second-degree murder? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Can you charge a 16-year-old with second-degree murder?
A 17-year-old can be charged with second-degree murder, but he is not. He's what we would call a Miller kid. Okay, that means the stakes are not life without parole. He will have a parole eligibility opportunity. It's 25 years. So honestly, he is not going to spend the rest of his life in jail. This is a good kid, though. And I'm not just saying that because he's my client. He is a good kid. I was talking to some of his former employers from Clegg's. They love him. Plant store, Clegg's. Love him to death. Want him to come back. When he gets out, let's get him on back. He has gone through a lot of stuff.
Is he being held without bail?
And I'm going to ask Jared on that. I think he has a bail amount.
Just shout it out.
What's his has he had a bail determination yet?
I believe it's set at 100,000.
100,000.
So you got to come up with 10K,
Essentially.
12K.
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 And look, part of the disappointment in this is there were services that this young man got from the state before he was indicted. He got a social worker. Okay, he had certain services, and that social worker was coming up with a plan of, if he were to bond out, where are we going to put him? What's he going to do?
So his history of living in an at-risk home, it's a matter of fact.
I don't think it's going to be a fact in dispute.
It's not a fact in dispute. I mean, the mom moved out and filed a protective order against him and had, broken teeth. I mean, the man was physically abusive to the entire family for the duration of this young man's life.
Well, we are out of time, gentlemen, but I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this again.
Sure.
And we wish you good fortune as we do this young man. I mean, it's one of these things where sometimes you go, yeah, sure, but it seemed pretty apparent, particularly the way his mother came forward immediately after that, talking about how he had been hidden by his father, kept basically as a captive, and had been abused. I don't know what we don't know at this point that made them come to an indictment, but I guess we'll find out.
Thank you,
We're gonna wait
gentlemen.
and see. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Joining us now, State Representative Paula Davis, who is running for re-election in her district. And also, real quick plug, she was one of last year's best dressed. And the
Yes.
best dressed ball for the
Good
American
morning.
Cancer
Hi, how
Society
are
is
you?
happening
Great, how are you?
tomorrow.
Excellent.
And Karen is one of the best dressed this year. So,
Now, Paula, as a former best dressed, are you like in a graduating class, or are you?
I'm the graduating class of 2018 for Best Dressed, but we are so excited to be with Karen and Bill tomorrow night to celebrate Karen. She is going to have a ball, and just be warned, she's not going to want to get off stage.
well,
She's going to do her runway walk, she's going to walk the catwalk, and then she's going to turn around and say, wait, I'm not done.
we're going to see about that. I've met the stage
And I
managers.
will encourage her.
As you know, the stage managers are pretty brutal.
Yes.
Get on, get to the end, come back, get off.
Well, yeah.
But
But
it-
I can't wait
Is
to
this a
see her.
sellout?
It's a sellout.
Yeah,
It has been
yeah.
a sellout.
That's marvelous.
Yeah.
That's
Last year was a sellout, and they raised almost $1 million
Yeah.
last year. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do this year.
What?
Yeah, it's they
Wow.
have a phenomenal team over at the American Cancer Society. So I'm really excited to
It's
see it.
hovering just under $1 million this year, as I
Yeah.
can understand it.
Yeah, the
And-
last couple of years it's been right under $1 million.
yeah. Here's something
So-
very interesting.
Yeah, the rich people in Baton Rouge don't do anything for society, do they?
No, they don't.
Nothing for charity.
Doorbell rings at the house yesterday at about 4 p.m. And I go, and it's a florist. And there's a floral delivery for Karen. It says, congratulations on being one of Baton Rouge's best dressed. And I don't want to call their name without permission, but there's a couple. And this young woman, they got married about 1.5 years ago, right after she found out she was diagnosed with one of the worst forms of breast cancer at stage 4.
Oh wow.
And they got married right before she started her chemotherapy.
Wow.
And she and her husband sent flowers to every one of the ladies
Oh,
because
wow.
this supports cancer
That's right.
research.
That's right.
And they were sweet enough and kind enough to send flowers to every one of the ladies who's
Wow.
walking the
And
the
has
runway
helped to
tomorrow
raise
night.
money, raise those funds to
Yeah.
do
So,
research to eradicate the disease.
We have a lot of big events that raise a lot of money for a lot of good causes. But do you know anybody that hasn't been impacted by cancer?
No, I was
No,
about
I-
to offer the same thought. No, everyone at least has
A
family
friend.
member, a friend, someone who's been impacted by cancer.
Yes.
My mom, my mother-in-law, my father.
Yeah.
My father-in-law. I mean, it's virtually everyone. So this
Yeah.
it's a good thing.
And I've had my grandmother had several forms of cancer, breast cancer being one, and then
Wow.
my dad fought and battled prostate cancer. About, let's see, Hayden was about 18 months old, so about 17 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and luckily they caught it early, and he is fine. He goes for his test every year, and he is completely fine. But and then my good friend Julie Stokes, Representative Stokes out of Kenner,
Mm-hmm.
battled it while we were in those 12 contentious sessions.
Before we get to politics and your
Yeah.
election, I do want to mention, people have said, and they've said it to me, I'm sure they've said it to you, I'm sure they've said, well, what does all this money we raise every year go for? What does it go for? And
I have a thought on that as well, but go ahead.
here is what I want people to understand. Almost every form of childhood leukemia, with the exception of AML, is almost completely curable now.
Sure.
You couldn't say that 15 years ago.
Right, completely.
About 25 forms of breast cancer that used to be a death sentence are curable.
Yeah, look at the survival
now.
rate. The survival rate is
Yeah.
very high, even with those that have stage 3, stage 4
Yeah.
cancers.
Lung cancer. Again, there are 4 or 5 forms, unless you get the small cell, that are either curable or
Yeah.
you can get a 25-year after diagnosis life out of. So that's what this money goes from. And then
Yeah.
all the lesser occurring cancers,
Right.
you know.
Plus, just the people these days that are, I mean, you and I know people that have been diagnosed and they're now cancer free.
That's right.
I have a brother who is cancer free. He had lymphatic cancer, and his treatments were so successful, he's now cancer
And
free.
30 years
Yeah.
ago, that was a death sentence.
And just the research that has come up with stem cell therapy. And I have a friend who's battled cancer 3 times now. She's barely 40 years old, and she is now cancer free, but she went through a stem cell transplant. And just the research. what this money goes to provide research into finding new ways to cure cancer and other diseases is just unbelievable.
But there are people out there that they don't move in a certain strata
Sure.
of society, and they think that all ACS does is they take the money and they have more events for the rich people. But
That
they
is
don't
not
realize
correct
the
at
rich
all.
people
That's
take
correct.
the richer, the more well-to-do people are digging deep to
Well,
take part in these things.
Not only that, you know what? And a lot of people don't do this, even though I tell them to, because they don't want to know. You can go to Charity Navigator. And
I've
right
never been a Charity
and
Navigator.
Right, and right there, it's going to tell you that the American Cancer Society of Louisiana, it's a statewide organization, raised,
Gentlemen, thank you.
raised, $3.5 million last year, and 19% of that went to operating the charity. Everything else went to patient services.
Correct.
and research.
I'm
You
gonna have to
can-
go to that.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
never been to that
You
site.
can check them all. You
Yeah.
can check out United Way. You can check out Boys and Girls Clubs.
ALS,
it's
Parkinson's, Red
all
Cross.
up
Yeah,
there.
sure. That's interesting. I didn't know about that
The
site.
thing is, it is a huge machine when you talk about research for all kinds of conditions and diseases. One of the things that I thought was very interesting is one of the folks was talking to all the best dressed, and a lot of their spouses were there, and they're saying, one of the things that we like to do is we like to find that young researcher that doesn't need $1 million. They're maybe just out of their PhD program, and they've got an idea that's off the wall.
Sure.
That may prove to be very, very valuable, and they can get it rolling for $40,000. And so we give it to them, and next thing you know, it turns into $1 million
Correct.
idea, and everybody wants
Correct.
to fund it because it's going to cure people.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're working real
Such a
hard.
good cause. So excited to be a part of it. Was excited to be a part of it last year. Had so much fun, but looking forward to tomorrow night. It's
So,
going to be a huge success.
On
Let's
to-
turn our attention to the
Yes.
so
legislature.
are you going to be the next Speaker of the House?
Well, Bill. First
I've
of all, I
been
need to
hearing
be.
that.
They can do a lot worse.
First of all, I need to win this election, and I'm very confident that the voters of District 69 will put me back in office. I've been so encouraged over the last 4 years over the amount of support and encouragement that I've received from the voters of District 69. I think I've represented them well, and I think that I've represented the state of Louisiana well. This next term proves to be a huge opportunity for the second termers and third termers because of term limits. We have, I think, almost half of the legislature turning over this next election cycle. So it proves to be a huge, huge opportunity for me and a lot of my colleagues. There has been a lot of talk of me running for Speaker of the House after I passed the sales tax bill that balanced the state's fisc and put us on, made us more financially sound. The credit ratings are good. We are fiscally stable right now. That kind of elevated my profile. It showed that I could work well with others. It showed that I know how to compromise, and that I was kind of a catalyst to get things done. I was determined to get something done and come up with that compromise. So we shall see. Hopefully, if I'm not Speaker of the House, I can be chairman of a committee, either Ways and Means or Insurance or Speaker Pro Tem. But again, we're putting together a plan. We have a group that's putting together a plan, and whether it's me or whether it's someone else, we need someone that can bring the entire body together, because the Speaker of the House not only represents the Republicans, which I am a Republican, but represents the Democrats and the independents in the House as well, and any other party that may be elected. So that person has to be able to work with the body as a whole.
And you've got a track record. As a matter of fact, Randy Hayden just commented that you've got courage, willingness to
Thank
build
you, Randy.
coalitions.
Right.
And he says the entire state lucky to have your
And
service.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Borrowing from Miracle on 34th Street, and Randy is a Democrat.
Yes, exactly.
Is Randy a Democrat? He's never told me. I think he's an independent. I don't know.
Well, I've never known Randy to be
I don't know.
fiercely partisan.
Right. No, he is not fiercely partisan. And if I were running for the chair of the Republican delegation, which I may, that person needs to be, head of that delegation and look out for that body. As a Speaker of the House, I think you need to be more diverse, and you have to be able to be willing to work with others and be able to compromise. And that's something I can do, but that is something that a lot of my colleagues can do. And I do have some good friends that have announced that they're going to run for Speaker or announcing that they're going to run for Speaker. And so we're going to get together and come up with a plan and see where I best fit into next term.
Where do members' desire to be Speaker fit in with who the governor wants? I mean, how does that all
Well,
come
I
together?
think that we have proven this last term.
You've proven you can have the Speaker you want.
That's correct, and I think that we will do that again. I think that we are determined. We elected an independent speaker. We all know that the governor wanted one person. David Vitter, while he was running, wanted one person. And there was kind of a group of us that came in and said, no, we're going to elect our own speaker. We're not going to have the governor. We have 3 branches of government.
And it turned out he did a wonderful job.
And he did do a wonderful job. Taylor Barra was the right man in the right place at the right time. His demeanor, his presence, his even-handedness, he was calm, cool, and collected during a very contentious 4 years. And
By
I
the
do
way,
believe
Randy Hayden says he's an indie.
I know.
like
I just replied. I said,
he's
I
an
know.
indie. I knew it. I knew it.
I told him I know. I was just dying to use the line on 34th Street. So,
I still love you, Randy, whatever you are.
Today's the last day of qualifying. Are you expecting any
Actually,
surprises?
yesterday was the last
all right,
day.
So
Yes.
who all is qualified to run?
I have a libertarian running against me. His name is Ryan Chase-Lee, and I really haven't dug into his
I
bio.
love them. They're just like wide-eyed school children that actually think they're going to get elected one day on a "Give It All Back to the Indians" platform. I just love them for amusement's sake.
You know, and the great thing about living in our country is that anyone can run for office as long as you're qualified.
As long as you got the check.
Right. As long as you have the $450
as
to
proven by
qualify.
some of our past legislators.
But, the Libertarian Party is my understanding that they're trying to get their name out and they're trying to get their message out. And I know that 5 Libertarians qualified together this week in 5 different races.
Did
in
they
East Baton
come in
Rouge
the
Parish.
VW bus with the flower stickers and
I
all
don't know
that?
all that. I don't know all that. But I do. I know his name. I really
That's
don't
it,
know
just-
anything
but
about
there's
him.
just him, Ryan Chase-Lee.
Yeah,
That's just
Ryan
it.
Chase-Lee. I don't know anything about him.
A serial killer name. That's not good.
I hate to speak in absolutes, but it sounds to me like you're going to cruise on this one.
I hope so, but I'm acting like this is, and I'm gonna work my behind off. You guys know me, and I am a hard worker.
You're
and
a
I'm
hard
gonna,
campaigner,
I'm
too.
a hard campaigner. My last campaign, I jumped in a month before qualifying, and I was running against a sitting Metro Council member who had name recognition.
Ryan Heck.
Yeah, Ryan Heck. And so I jumped in and hit the ground running, and we worked really hard. My family, I can't thank my family enough because we didn't have any money to hire walkers and campaign helpers. So my family drove in every weekend. And we have a private fire truck, and my dad's 1940s, which was my great-grandfather's little red pickup truck. We campaigned in that every weekend. We delivered signs. We did everything as a family and really worked our tails off. And that's what I'm going to do again. Not only just to keep my name out there, but also to get the message out and talk about what I've accomplished and what we've accomplished in the state and what the Capital Region still needs to accomplish. Because I think that the Capital Region is a very diverse group, but we have an opportunity to come together. And that's something that's my vision for the Capital Region, is to bring us more together as a delegation, because I think that we can get a lot of stuff done. We're not going to always agree on everything, but the one thing we talk about every day here is traffic and infrastructure.
We've
And we
gotta
can
agree on some
absolutely
things,
come
yeah.
together to get funds, to come up with legislation, to come up with creative ideas. Maybe it's not a gas tax, maybe it is, but to come up with creative ideas. I think I talked with you guys on the other show about my I filed a bill this past session. I think it was House Bill 415. Anybody can go on and look at it on the site. And it was modeled after Texas's legislation. The voters voted in legislation in Texas in 2015, right before I ran. And someone called me and said, hey, Paula, look at Proposition 7 that's happening in Texas. And that takes a portion of the state sales tax that is above a certain amount, and it dedicates it to infrastructure only. So the last 2 years, they've been able to provide $2.5 billion to infrastructure needs in Texas. And it was Father's Day weekend. Father's Day weekend, I saw the fruits of that because my husband and I and my family went skydiving.
Did you really?
We
I was
did.
going to ask you
You
about
We
that.
went on
jumped
a
out
little
of perfectly good airplane?
I did, and it was amazing. It was a wonderful thrill, and I
Make
plan
you
to do
wanna
it again.
join John Bell's administration? He used to do that for a living.
He did. So we're going to do it again. And so if you two would like to come
Oh,
in,
hell
we
no.
can do a podcast up in the air. How about that?
I
like that
no.
idea.
Jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, as Clint Eastwood said, not a natural act. It's
Karen and I did stunts in open cockpit steermen. And you have to wear a parachute.
Yeah.
And they give you your parachuting instructions.
Did they okay, they taught you how
And
to
I looked at the pilot
jump
and
just
I
in
said,
case.
You know what? said, if you yell bail out, bail out, bail out, you're going by yourself because I'm going to stay in this thing and hope for a soft landing.
Write it down.
Yes,
I
write
will
it down.
not
I
jump.
love it.
You know, Paula, I was-
but it's interesting. So traveling between Houston and Rocheron, which is where we went to Skydive Spaceland, around the Sugar Land area. Unbelievable the amount of infrastructure and money they are pouring into
yeah.
that area. And I just thought, I wanted to take pictures and post on Facebook. This is what we could be doing, but we've got to think outside of the box. And my plan, the Texas plan, may not work for Louisiana. It may not be the best idea, but let's sit in a room and come up with ideas. But we have about 30 members in the capital region, and that's about 9 parishes. That's a lot of members and a lot of power. And we can get things done if we just sit down and come together on the things that we can come together on and agree on.
One of the things that we asked your colleague from the House, Franklin Foyle, who's now running for the Senate, is none of the candidates for governor at this point are talking about the huge amount of our population that is on public assistance of some sort or another,
Right.
like 27%.
Right.
And I think this is an issue that interferes with economic development.
Sure.
I know it's an issue that interferes with traffic and
Sure.
infrastructure.
Sure.
Do you think that you can marshal the forces in the House to try to throttle some of this back? I mean, when somebody runs, and I'm not specifically talking about the governor, but somebody runs on, I increase these benefits, this is something that people should feel like they had to do at a point of a gun.
Right.
This is not the right direction. We want to
Right.
decrease. We want to get more people off these benefits.
And you know, those conversations, maybe not with the gubernatorial candidates, and I haven't heard any discussion about that issue, but there are members of the legislature, especially those that sit on the appropriations committees, and I'll mention them: Tony Bacala and Rick Edmonds and Jack McFarland.
Good guys.
Good guys, and they have really worked hard to rein in spending, especially in the Medicaid area, and look at what can we cut, what can we do to, coming up with work requirements, coming up with co-pays, just different ideas. Again, thinking outside of the box and trying to get some different ideas out there to kind of curb that spending. But you're right. I mean, it is something that we do need to talk about. Talking about that, I don't think I was on your show. I think it was after your show that I passed the blight bill. I passed a bill, House Bill 466, which addressed blight, and that goes a long way. Those types of legislation, in addition to the Medicaid issues, go a long way in bringing properties back into commerce, which increases economic development, which helps our communities as a whole, increases property values. So we can do different things in different areas, and we have to start that conversation. And I think we have. I think we have a lot of good people that have started those conversations.
The state budget's on $1 billion a year growth curve. That's got to end.
It
somehow.
increased
just
by
can't keep going that way.
1.6% this
And it's
past
mostly
year.
going to health, to Department of Health and Hospitals.
Health, yes,
Well, health.
and a lot of that is federal matching funds, but it did increase by 1.6% this year, and arguably we have had in the last 4 years the most conservative House Appropriations Committee, I would say, in the history of our state. And Franklin Foyle was the vice chair of that committee, and it proves to be a very, very difficult task. But
Well, it's a difficult task because the handout programs are the biggest campaign issue so many of the districts have.
completely.
You know, I wonder if anybody has brought in a sociologist or economist and say, all right, our benefits for this program are in the top 5 of the nation, but our ranking for this in terms of economic growth or whatever is in the bottom 5. So we're going to reduce this benefit amount until...
We have, sure.
And the thing is, the out-migration
It's a
we had last
cost-benefit
year...
analysis.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
Out-migration last year was 27,188 people. 98% of them were professionally trained people who were tired of the tax bite, and it was easy for them to find good-paying jobs in Texas without this onerous tax burden.
Right.
I think we need to find a way to stabilize that, and the only way I know about it is to prove to them that these programs, which they don't like and they're forced to accept at the point of a gun to someone else's political advantage, are being reined in.
Correct. And luckily, we do have those folks that have started those conversations and have been huge advocates on the Appropriations Committee for those. And it'll be interesting to see what we have next term, to see what the makeup of the legislature is, and to see what those platforms are and who gets appointed to those committees that can really call in those agencies and drill down into those details.
So with 5 minutes left,
Yeah.
what do you want to say to the voters in your district? And talk to the voters that aren't in your district as well, because I hear it's a pretty good chance that you might be a contender for Speaker of the House.
So I would just love to, first of all, thank the voters of District 69. I can't tell you how wonderful this experience has been. Just again, the amount of encouragement I receive every day from the people in my district and from people around the state. People I don't even know that contact me just saying, thank you, you're doing such a great job. Thank you for fighting for this, these folks or this agency or higher ed or whatever it is. It's been the most humbling experience, and I really, really thank the voters of District 69 for giving me that opportunity, because I really faced an uphill battle when I ran the first time. But again, we worked our behinds off.
You did.
And we did it. And I think that I've been a really positive catalyst for change and trying to bring some common sense to our legislature. And I think that not only my voters in District 69 see that, but as my colleagues as well. I think one of the best compliments that I've received in being in the legislature is having a colleague come up to me, and we may not agree on everything, but they say, we trust you, we appreciate that you will always tell us how you're going to vote, where you're going to be, you're always honest, and you're loyal. And I pride myself on that because, and Franklin knows this, and other members of the legislature know this, your word is everything in the legislature. And if you don't have that, you don't have anything.
Well, I think the great affinity that Ted James,
Yes.
who is a wonderful state representative.
Yes.
And is reelected, by
in
the
his
way.
own right. Yeah, he's running without opposition.
Unopposed.
But he is a Democrat, and you all have forged
Yes.
such a great working relationship.
have.
And I think sometime next couple of weeks, we'll bring another mic. We'll have the Ted and Paula show. We'll put them
I
all
love
together.
the
What do you
Ted
think?
and Paula
I
show.
would love to do that.
No,
Yeah.
Ted, I'm very excited that Ted was unopposed and he is back in. And I think he posted on Facebook that his name is gonna be out there because he's gonna be working so hard to reelect his colleagues and his friends and the people that he supports. But again, Ted and I have formed a really great bond. We have a brother-sister relationship, and we don't always agree. But when we do, we come together and we fight for what we believe in. You know, Children's Hospital is one of them. Funding for Children's Hospital we have fought for 4 years now, and we have been successful. And it's so exciting every time I pass on I-10 to see that building, and they're going to have a grand opening.
Isn't that amazing?
It's just amazing. It makes me so happy. But fighting for $20 million was not easy.
No, it never is. Now,
So I was surprised at some other House members that are running unopposed. Barry Ivy's
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
back.
Barry
He's got
Ivy's
no
in,
opposition.
yes.
Valerie Hodges.
Yeah.
And Edmund Jordan.
Edmund
Again,
Jordan
nobody-
and Tony
nobody-
Bacala
Yeah.
got in
I think
unopposed.
that shows
So
that they've been doing a good job.
they have been doing a great job. Again, we have worked, and you guys know, we have worked so hard over the last 4 years. We've had 12 sessions, 7 special sessions. It's been a whirlwind. It's the equivalent of 12 years in office.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like you're being held hostage at the Capitol building.
I think someone did the math, and before this past session, we worked 42 weeks total in the last 4 years, which is just unheard of. So we have become a really tight-knit group, and it's been so fun having the phone calls yesterday after qualifying ended from my colleagues, even that have opposition, saying, what can we do to help you? We're here for you. We're here to support you. We will come walk neighborhoods. We will hold signs. Anything you need, we're here for you. We're just a tight-knit group, even
Well,
though we don't always agree.
Yeah, well, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Cohesive bodies get
Yes,
things done. All right,
yeah.
we got 1 minute left. In addition to being a state representative
Yes.
and a former best dressed, you are a very proud mom.
I am.
And we would be very remiss if we didn't ask
Thank
how
you.
Hayden's first year of college went.
Amazing. War Eagle. She absolutely loved college. She loved it so much that she did not come home in the spring semester.
Oops.
Really?
Oops. We went up to Birmingham and met her there. She had a phenomenal first year. She pledged Chi Omega. She's very, very involved in the sorority. She dove right in. Imagine that being, she is my child and my husband. So
Is there a guy involved there?
there is not a guy involved. I think she may be talking. I think that's what they call it now.
Talking.
She may
Talking.
kill me after this, but no serious relationship, and I'm encouraging no serious relationship
Well,
for a
give me
while.
her email address. I'll make sure to send her a link to this podcast.
Yes. But we brought her
Tell her.
back. She was actually gone all summer. She was gone for 10 weeks this summer. She was home for 2 days, and then we brought her back to Auburn on Saturday, left her on Sunday, and Dad is really, really sad. I'm very sad, but I did get to see her for a week this summer. But Dad was really, really busy.
What is she studying?
She is in exercise science, and she wants to go to occupational therapy school. So pediatric occupational therapy is
Wonderful.
what she wants
That
to
is
do.
That is a real
Yeah.
burgeoning
She
field.
she loves kids. She works well with kids. She was a camp counselor this summer, and she had the baby. She had the 6 to 8 year old cabin.
Good for
and
her.
just loved it. She thrives on it, and she's a great kid. So and really good grades. She kept up her grades. So the scholarship was here again this year.
I am
know you
glad
and John
to
are
hear
very,
that.
very
We are
proud.
so proud of her.
Well, that does it for this. We will see
Thank you.
tomorrow night at Best Dressed.
Yes.
Looking forward to
Yes.
it. And
Thank you for having
for the
me.
rest
Please
of you-
give John our
Yeah.
best regards as
We
well.
will. I will.
Thank you for joining us. We will be back on Tuesday from La Divina Italian Cafe.
Our guest will be Dawn Stars, the National Federation of Independent Business. We'll be talking with her, and Roy Fletcher will be chiming in on some political matters.
And we'll have a visit of another great charity. Dining by Design is coming up. We're going to have a 10-minute visit with them to talk about this. This is for the Sister Dolce Hospice Foundation. So we'll talk about that very briefly on Tuesday as well. In the meantime, have a great weekend. I will be posting pictures of Karen and Paula and John and me and everybody from Best Dressed on Facebook tomorrow night. So you get
And
it.
I will not.
You will get a chance. You will get a chance to see the dress. I got in big trouble
Can't wait.
because
I have seen the dress.
You have seen the dress.
See, that's what I got in
Okay.
trouble for. I took a picture of her.
It's like a wedding.
in the store,
She
and I
looks
showed
like
the
$1 million.
dress.
Oh, I'm sure. She always looks like $1 million.
I got in big trouble for showing that picture I took in the store.
Bill.
I know.
Bill.
I know.
Oh my goodness! What
I
were you
was-
thinking?
I was
I'd
excited.
be furious with you if you were.
proud.
Well, yeah, that's about.
You are
where-
proud. You're
that's
proud.
about
I
where
get
we're-
it.
I was very excited about it. And so yeah. So you will see the dress when it comes down the runway. I'm not going to show the pictures anymore. I'll take the
Okay.
pictures tomorrow night.
I won't ask. To
Was
see
your
it.
dress last year a big secret?
Of course it was. My husband had no idea what I was wearing until I came out on stage.
Really?
Yes, I
See,
did not
we
show
don't
him.
get to see
How
it.
do you keep that
We
from your
sit at the
husband?
table and we eat
Put
the
it in a
drink and all
bag.
the
He
honorees
didn't
are back.
look. John, you guys know John. He's so amazing, and he didn't peek. He didn't look. I'm not even sure he knew where the dress was in the house. But he did not see the dress until I walked out on stage.
Well,
Wow.
yeah.
Karen.
And that was probably his reaction.
Wow.
Yeah,
I hope
Karen
it
is so
was.
tall. She doesn't need much in the way of alterations.
Right.
Well, on this gown, it was built for somebody a little taller than she was, so she had to take it to the tailor.
And I'm so
And we had to
curious about the
square them
color on
secrets.
Karen. I can't wait to see the color.
It's it is striking. I will tell you all that.
I'm sure it is. She's always striking.
So anyway, that does it for us. I'll send pictures on Saturday night, tomorrow night, and in the meantime, you all be well, and we'll be up on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'll have it up later this afternoon.
And it is
You
called,
search for the K&B Podcast.
Very good.
Okay?
Ta-ta.
Love you. Bye-bye. Mean it.